Thanks for tuning in today to the first episode of my boat build. Now, before we get into the actual boat build itself, I wanted to take a few minutes to introduce myself and give you all a little bit of color and context as to what you're going to be seeing, why I'm doing it, and just a little bit of detail around this project in general. So what am I building? So I'm building a fishing boat. Specifically, I'm building an 18-foot Panga. The Panga is designed by Spira of Spira International. He's designed hundreds of boats based on what I've seen on his website. And they all seem relatively easy to build, which is kind of the idea behind why I wanted to build it. They're made primarily with construction-grade lumber, laid over with plywood, then fiberglass, and then from there you got to kind of create the rest of the boat. So center consoles, make it a fishing vessel, make it whatever kind of vessel you want to do, rig it, etc., etc. We're a long ways away from that. But that's kind of what this is. So 18-foot Panga should be a fun build. I'm looking forward to it. Now, why build? So ever since I was a little kid, my dad liked to teach me how to build stuff. And it drove me bananas for a while when I was growing up, because sometimes it seemed so much easier just to go out and buy stuff. But one of those first passions I had was fishing, and so ultimately we learned how to build fishing rods together, which was a really cool experience. As I grew older, I started to learn how to play guitar. We learned how to build guitars. Down the road, I got into the golf industry, learned how to build golf clubs and repair golf clubs. And now as a homeowner, I've gotten really into DIY type of stuff. So it's going to be a pretty big project. This is probably one of the biggest projects I've ever undertaken, if not the biggest. And it's going to be a challenge, and that's really why I wanted to build a boat. I mean, sure, I could go out and buy a boat, but I feel like I'll get a little more satisfaction out of either attempting to build a boat or actually building the whole damn thing. So, I'm looking forward to it, and this should be interesting. And, I've always wanted a fishing boat. I've really thought about it a lot harder over the last few years, last 2 or 3 years, and over the last couple of months, I thought it was time to pull the trigger on it. So I ordered the plans, bought a ton of lumber, and have started to try to acquire a lot of knowledge. Now, when you think about the knowledge aspect of this, I don't know anything about building boats. Don't know anything much about boats. I mean, I've ridden in boats for many times, many fishing trips. I've driven a boat here or there, but never owned a boat. Never really known anyone that's owned a boat outside of a few people. But overall, I'm going to try to take this as a big learning experience. And so the reason why I want to document this as best I can, first of all, I think it's just a cool thing that I'm trying to do. It's cool to me, at least. But secondly, there are a lot of resources out there for building boats. There's a lot of resources out there that the creator of these plans, Spira, has put together. He has a great YouTube channel, great Facebook page, Instagram page, where he shows a lot of the boats that his customers have built over the years. Some have documented them via video on YouTube. Some have done a better job of that than others. So I'm looking to expand on that great base of knowledge that's out there and really try to document, like, start to finish, everything that goes into the building of this boat, from the earliest cuts to putting that thing in the water and trying to catch that first fish. So I'm going to try to really make this fun. Going to be a lot of time-lapse footage, so hopefully you enjoy the ride. I sure am going to as well. But join me on the journey, wish me luck, and I wanted to thank you again. Enjoy episode 1. I don't know if there'll be many of these videos, these one-to-one videos throughout the entire build, but we'll see what happens. Enjoy, and take care. I will also note it is the end of April 2020, just to give you a little bit of time frame. I believe this particular model takes anywhere from like 80 to 100 hours to build. I don't remember exactly. Don't think it's going to take me anywhere close to that. I'm going to blow right by that figure. But you never know. Maybe we'll learn and get faster together, and we'll go from there. Thanks again, and enjoy the video.
All right, so here we go with the transom drawing. So I'll be perfectly honest with everybody. I initially was going to be recording everything from start to finish. Right off the bat, lost all my footage for the first attempt at the transom, which coincidentally turned out to be a complete disaster. So we're going to reboot a little bit here. And additionally, I did pre-build the first frame prior to doing this rebuild of the transom. So my skills in the transom are slightly better than what they were in the first frame, but you will all see that at some point in the near future, we'll hope. So as you can see here, based on what the plans called for. Many folks do these drawings just directly onto a sheet of plywood. Some folks do it on a piece of butcher paper or some sort of construction paper over the top. I am one of those folks. And reason being is I'm imagining that I imagine that I could save these. I'm labeling each piece as I go, and that I'll be able to rebuild the boat in full scale if I ever choose to do that. We'll see. We're only 2 frames in, and I don't know if I'll be building a second one of these, but you never know. But anyway, so the plans are relatively simple to follow once you kind of get a couple of mistakes under your belt. So you scribe out kind of the horizontal markings and the vertical markings onto the sheet of paper, and you kind of get going. I will say this giant T-square, which I believe is a drywall square, was instrumental in making any of this possible. It may... We'll see. We'll hope that it is as accurate as I'm hoping it is. I think it will be based on what I've read online. I'm pretty sure that you can be off by a scotch here and there because we're going to fare a lot. We're going to be sanding a lot and go from there. Here you've got me attempting to kind of grab that first angle off of the bottom of the transom. That'll be ultimately the bottom of the boat in the rear. I should probably brush up on my boat terminology before too long here. But anyway, this has been the biggest area of struggle for me so far, at least it was initially, in just, accurately identifying what that angle should be, using a T-bevel, using a metalworker's protractor. So far, using the metalworker's protractor has proved to be the easiest way, and then I'm transcribing that over to a digital T-bevel that I purchased, which has been absolutely cash money. There you saw me cutting that first angle. I since have stopped putting the clamping my sawing pieces there because everything shakes because of that. So, and here you've got me going on to the next corner piece here. Again, measuring out, trying to get as accurate as possible, and marking that out as well. Smash cut, you'll see that I've already kind of cut and dry assembled those first 4 pieces. They're just mirrors of one another. And so here I am cutting out some sort of a jig. This was a hilarious situation. So for the transom, everything is made with butt joints. So I'm just kind of liquid nailsing, gluing these pieces together. Ultimately, a piece of plywood and then fiberglass will kind of come over the top of it and shore everything up. But anyway, trying to work through these, clamping these angles so nothing moves was pretty hilarious. It got better ultimately, but here you see me trying to create an angle clamp, which is apparently very feasible to do. You just have to be willing to actually cut the lumber. I was trying to just piecemeal it with whatever scraps I had left over, which really wasn't a great idea. And you'll see shortly here as I kind of go over and bright idea. Here comes the clamp, I think. Yep, and everything moves. And you'll see me just kind of futzing around here for a while. Case in point right there. I believe here I was looking for a staple gun. Yeah. I don't know what my game plan was exactly here. As you can see in just a sec, I'll immediately pull those staples because it made no sense. That said, staple gun will come into play soon. Anyway, what I ended up doing for this one was probably not the wisest idea. I just ended up marking this with a Sharpie and pencil. And my idea was, hey, let's just mark everything, get the glue down, and then we'll, just line everything up perfectly, clamp it, and then be done with it. That glue right there is the bottom joint right there, so that one was easy enough to take care of. But this is going to be a fun little clip right here because this is a ridiculous clamping setup I had here, at least ridiculous with my current level of woodworking. Which I will say has improved tremendously, just getting like one messed up transom and then the first frame and then into this one. Everything kind of started to come together. Or has come together. I've learned a lot here in about, a week and a half. And here we go, gluing up those corners. This is the other side here. I decided let's glue everything up at the same time. And there you can see my eloquently drawn markings. You will notice that I am a little short on that furthest right arm, so to speak, of that of the transom. I'm intending to ultimately fill that up with either some type of dog food, as Jeff Spira would call it, which is just sawdust mixed with epoxy resin. I'll figure something out there. I don't think it's the end of the world. If it is, by the time I'm done with every other frame, I'll be able to knock out a transom in no time. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment. We'll see how good at this I am. So now everything is kind of glued up and just sort of hanging on an edge there. You saw a little thumbs up there. I was measuring and making sure that everything was out to the right lengths, and it was. Everything was exactly where it needed to be. This is where we start kind of getting into building that cross frame. So again, I don't know any boat terminology. So this is ultimately the motor bracket, I should say. So this is where my outboard will eventually sit. Well, not on this. You'll see the big 2x6 that gets laid in a bit. That's where the actual motor will sit. But these are just some more support brackets that kind of go on either side of that. Again, having a 48-inch ruler with that little T on the bottom and a 4x8 piece of plywood came in really clutch. I nailed in a little nail right there, right at that height that I wanted it to be, just so I could have something to hold it against. And here we go. We're going to clamp down right here. We're measuring out some angles. Again, these are going to be just for the supports that are going to be on the top and sides of the transom right there. So a goal here is to kind of match up the angle that it's set to and have it kind of run parallel. You'll see a multitude of lines on that board because I never really trust my first line, or my second in some cases. Surprisingly, oh, here we go. Here's a little interesting thing. So ended up picking up these angle clamps from Rockler. No free ads, but those came in magnificent handy, so I didn't have to replicate my earlier weird lack of jigs and just hand drawing. So you're able to kind of set those in the corner, clamp up to them, and then you're in pretty good shape. So again, thank you, Rockler, for that. So at this point, I'm actually going to glue them together. I was so elated with just the fact that they clamped. I took a little bit of a breather for a little while. So I'm raising everything up here so that I can get clamps kind of all over the place. Again, I probably should avoid doing all the sides at once, but, you know, YOLO, I guess. This is an area where I'll need to build up some knowledge here. So because my clamps are, they're clamps. They're not super wide. I needed something to kind of brace on either side so that those would glue up level to one another. So I had some scrap OSB, put those on there. Later in this video, you'll see I did that with 2x4s, which was probably not a wise idea. Again, I'll figure something out there. I'm sure someone will instruct me on what I need to do on that regard, but I'll continue to Google and find a solution there. Again, that angle clamp is so great. I'm hoping I get to use it again. I hope I didn't just use it for that one transom, so we'll see. Here's a little bit of a close-up of kind of how this is going to go together here. We got everything kind of sitting up on a couple of those 2x3s just so that it'll sit. I should mention, I don't think I've mentioned before, but this particular boat is all the frames are 2x3s except for one chunk on the transom, that 2x6, which you guys will see in a little bit here. Next day, here you see me prying off OSB. Same rinse and repeat on the other side. Let's take all those clamps off. Let's pry off that OSB. I think you got a flip coming up here in just a quick sec. Yep, there you go. Rinse and repeat, do the other side. Pop those guys off. Beautiful day out there today. There's Gardner Bob and his son. Here's the cleanup just with a hammer and a chisel, just kind of cleaning up all the errant glue and, just kind of cleaning up as best I can. Ultimately, this will probably take a lot of sanding and stuff to get everything kind of where I want it to be, but a little cleanup early on doesn't hurt anything. And again, I don't know what I'm doing, so you'll see just me futzing around with all sorts of the tools that I've acquired over time here. And it's rather therapeutic to chisel away at glue and chisel away at things in general. All right, so here we go. This is the one that this kept me up at night for a couple nights here. Again, not knowing anything about actual owning a boat or anything about outboards or anything like that. This boat calls for a long shaft outboard, which will be I believe 20 inches. So needed to be accurate with where I set the actual bracket itself, which again is that 2x6. So I went back and forth a little bit here, just trying to make sure that that all sides were 20 inches from the bottom of the boat, so to speak. So here you see me marking 20 inches from the bottom of that boat. For the next video, I'll probably bring a glossary of boat terms that I should know by now, so that to the more seasoned boat folks out there, I'm a little more clear cut with what I'm talking about here, and not speaking so many layman's terms. Again, never hurts to double check. Let's grab another probably inaccurate ruler. Here we go with cutting the 2x6. My goal in this one was to not burn another $12 on a 2x6 like I did the first time. So extra clamping, getting it going with the handsaw. And we'll see what happens. Luckily, it turned out pretty well, so I'm very happy about that. A little cleanup, because you got to clean it up. All right, and here we go. So, like I said, staple gun is back. Reason I did this was so that I could measure the exact distance of that 2x6 that I needed, because I had been coming up short on a lot of my cuts, short or long. So I was like, let's try to really do the really good job of that. I should probably apply that same logic to the rest of the boat build, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I feel like we're getting there. All right, here we go. Measuring up everything again, capturing that same angle that we need to sit right inside there. Let's grab that saw and get to cutting. There, I was just making sure that my cut was going up perpendicular to the ground. And after a little cleanup, dropped it in. Look at that. Pretty perfect. At least perfect to my eye and perfect to the snugness. Here I am just kind of double checking the length there from the bottom to make sure we're sitting at that 20 inches that we're looking for. And here we are just kind of raising everything up, getting ready for the gluing. And just, continuing to quadruple, quintuple, sextuple, septuple, octuple. I don't know if there's that many tuples, but just continuing to check that my lengths are exactly where they need to be. And, double, triple checking with my eyeballs as well. Here you can see what I was talking about, where those clamps don't actually clamp as well as I'm hoping for. Again, I'll figure out something here. There'll be an easy way to work around this. But this is where I kind of incorporated some 2x4s underneath and above, just to kind of make sure everything was clamped down. Here we go, getting that good old Liquid Nails PL Premium 3X. Again, no free ads, but good stuff so far. We'll hope this thing stays together. And here we go. Is at this point, I believe, where I realized I needed to think about raising this up a little more just to get a better clamping on it. And here we go. Lucky, we start with the OSB. This is me realizing that I can actually lift this thing up and go under and clean up the glue underneath it. A little more cleanup here for you. Oh, and actually, come to think of it, I think the 2x4s come a little later in this situation. They come in this next set of gluing, so this is for a little bottom support right here. Where you can see my lack of angle knowledge coming together. You'll see my iPhone calculator just kind of struggling there to keep up with me. But again, just trying to figure out the angle here for this bottom brace. Here comes the... this was a fun one. This took a while. You'll also see some movie magic here in just a moment where I actually cut this thing twice. First time did a horrible job of it. Tried again, did a slightly less horrible job. And it came to the point again where I felt it was close enough to where I felt good with the cut. Again, we'll see where we end up here, you know, X number of months down the road when it's time to actually start, you know, putting this on the strong back. I might consider rebuilding the transom, but we'll see. I think it'll be all right. And for any kids watching out there, definitely pay attention to geometry. It'll come into handy whether you're building a boat in the future or not. Because this is just painful. The more I rewatch it, it was painful in the moment, and it's definitely more painful here. I guarantee you, there's a much easier solution to anything that I'm doing here. But here we go. Come this guy down again. Like I said, this is the second attempt I had, and here you see more of me futzing, grabbing a rasp, and just kind of doing nothing. But here we go. You see that little gap there on that lower right-hand side of that. So I filled that in with some mix of sawdust and rubber cement, liquid nails. I got to get that down exactly what it is. PL Premium 3X. But anyway, so I filled in that little gap with that stuff. You'll see it there in that little measuring cup, or it was in that measuring cup. Now it's on there. You know, the more I rewatch this on actual tape, I'll realize I could probably use a little more glue than what I'm doing here. But again, we'll correct for that in the next set of frames, and then ultimately a potential transom rebuild here. And this is what I was talking about when I started to kind of tap into using 2x4s. I'm like, oh, let's use a popsicle stick here. Didn't do anything. I think I switched to paper here again, and I think it was getting late at this point. And I thought that would be strong enough to kind of hold everything together and hold everything together level where it should be relative to the other pieces, the other boards there. Yep, there's a piece of paper. And yeah, everything just kind of jostled around there. So this is where we started to kind of play around with adding some 2x4s to the mix. And those 2x4s will be coming soon. I keep teasing everybody about it, but this is, I figured I'd go and glue in the little extra supports that go on the top of the transom as well. So we'll get to that shortly. Here we go with a little bit of cleanup. Again, taking off that remnant OSB that was holding everything in place. And gluing these guys in. I believe those little blocks measured out to be about 4 inches and 1/8, 4 1/8 inches. And it took me a while to cut those. Again, this was late in the night. Don't drink and boat build. I might have to keep it to lighter beverages than what I was drinking at this point. But we ultimately figured it out. They were snug enough that I was able to go ahead and just glue them, flip them, and then kind of fill in any gaps. And this is where the gear started turning when it came to clamping these things together. Now, one thing I did not capture on footage is me actually removing the 2x4s. Did that on a nice sunny afternoon out in the backyard. And didn't bring the camera out for that one. It felt a little sketchy, but we were able to get them off without too much of a struggle. But there you go, getting all those clamped down together. Apply pressure wherever I can. And there you go. There is a finished transom. That pretty much wraps up this episode. We'll have many more to come. Hopefully the next one will come relatively soon. Those will be covering all of the rest of the frames and whatever else I learned along the way. So thank you, folks, if you made it this far, and we will catch you hopefully here in the very near future. Thanks.